Jamal was excited, his heart beating faster with each step he took toward the shiny, modern car dealership. He had been dreaming about owning his first car for years. His friends had theirs, and now it was his turn. His father had always taught him to work hard and dream big, and today was the day he was going to make his dream come true. The sun was shining brightly as Jamal pushed the door open and stepped into the sleek showroom, where the cars gleamed under the lights, and everything smelled new and polished. The dealership was impressive, with glass walls and polished floors that reflected the cars perfectly. There were several shiny new models on display, some in rich red colors, others in deep black, all looking expensive and powerful. Jamal felt out of place. He wasn't used to being around such luxury, and he wasn't sure if he belonged here. He took a deep breath and reminded himself that he had every right to be there. A salesman was standing behind a desk near the entrance, tapping away at a tablet. He looked up and quickly sized Jamal up, his eyes scanning his worn-out sneakers and faded jeans. Without saying a word, the man lowered his gaze back to his screen, as if Jamal wasn't even there. Jamal hesitated for a moment, then walked up to the desk, his voice shaking slightly as he spoke. "Excuse me, I'm here to look at cars. I was hoping to buy my first one." The salesman didn't immediately respond. He paused, then let out a quiet sigh before finally looking up at Jamal. His expression was one of clear disinterest. "Yeah, sure," the man muttered, waving his hand vaguely toward the cars. "You can look around, but I don't think you're in the right place for a serious purchase." Jamal was taken aback. He had expected a warm welcome, or at least some basic assistance. But instead, he was met with cold dismissal. He forced a smile and nodded, trying to brush it off. It wasn't the first time he had been treated like this. Growing up in a mostly black neighborhood, Jamal had often felt like people judged him before they got to know him. But this was different. He was at a dealership. This was supposed to be professional. He tried to shake off the feeling and walked further into the showroom. As he made his way past the cars, he heard the salesman talking to a colleague in a low voice, just loud enough for Jamal to catch a few words. "Yeah, some people think they can just walk in here, but they have no idea what these cars cost. He's probably wasting our time." Jamal's heart sank. He wasn't stupid. He knew what the man meant. He could feel the weight of the judgment in the air. It was clear the salesman assumed he couldn't afford a car here. It was clear that, because of the way Jamal looked, his clothes, his skin color, the way he carried himself, he didn't belong. The humiliation stung. It wasn't just the words the salesman had said, it was the way he had been treated like an outsider, as if Jamal wasn't even worth a proper conversation. His mind raced. He had saved up for months, working extra hours at the local grocery store, doing everything his father had told him to do, saving, planning, working hard. This was supposed to be a special moment, but now he felt small and invisible. He wandered through the showroom, examining the cars without touching anything. His fingers brushed lightly against the smooth surfaces, and he tried to imagine what it would be like to drive one of these beautiful machines. There was a bright red sports car that caught his eye. It was sleek and powerful, a perfect symbol of success. He imagined himself behind the wheel, speeding down an open highway, free from everything. He smiled at the thought, but the smile quickly faded when the salesman reappeared. "Are you seriously looking at that one?" the man asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "That's way out of your league, kid." Jamal's face flushed with anger. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words got stuck in his throat. What could he say? He didn't want to argue with the man, especially when he knew that nothing he said would change the way he was being treated. He could feel the sweat starting to form on his forehead, his hands growing clammy. The dealership, which had once seemed so exciting, now felt like a prison of judgment and rejection. He turned to walk away, but before he could leave the showroom, The salesman stopped him. "Hey," the man called, almost reluctantly. "If you want to look at anything else, I'm over here." His tone was still dismissive, but there was a slight change in his approach now. It was like he was trying to offer a crumb of kindness, but it was too late. Jamal had already decided he didn't want anything from this man. He didn't need his pity. With a heavy heart, Jamal turned toward the door, the excitement he had felt earlier drained from him. He had dreamed about this moment for so long, but now all he felt was disappointment and shame. He stepped outside into the parking lot, the bright sun shining down on him, but it felt different now, too harsh, too bright. Jamal looked around, trying to calm himself. He hadn't expected things to be easy, but he never thought it would be like this. His mind went back to the words of the salesman, to the judgment and the assumptions. Was this how the world saw him? Was this how people saw him because of the color of his skin? He pulled out his phone and looked at the text messages his father had sent earlier that day, telling him to stay positive and reminding him that the road to success was never easy. Jamal couldn't help but feel a sense of shame. His father, Mr. Avery, had always taught him to stay humble, to keep working hard and never let anything get in the way of his dreams. But this was different. It was harder to ignore. Jamal knew he needed to talk to his father about what had happened. But what would he say? How could he explain the feelings of rejection, the humiliation of being dismissed before he even had a chance to prove himself? As he walked away from the dealership, he promised himself that he wouldn't let this moment define him. He would work harder. He would show the world that he was capable of more than they thought. But even as he made that promise to himself, the sting of the salesman's words lingered, a constant reminder of the unfairness he had faced. Jamal walked away from the car dealership, his mind spinning. The words of the salesman echoed in his head, his humiliation weighing on him. He knew he shouldn't let it get to him, but it was hard not to. How could people make assumptions about him without even knowing who he was or what he had worked for? Jamal had never considered himself someone who let things like this define him, but today, it felt different. His excitement for buying his first car had quickly turned to frustration and anger. He tried to push the thoughts out of his head as he walked down the street, his shoes making soft echoes on the pavement. The sun was starting to set, casting a warm golden glow over everything. But even the beauty of the evening couldn't calm the storm inside him. His father, Mr. Avery, had always told him that the world could be unfair at times, but that didn't mean he should stop pushing forward. That he should keep working hard, stay focused, and eventually, the world would see his value. But right now, Jamal felt like he had been slapped with a harsh reality. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pulled it out to see a message from his father. It was short and to the point. "Hey Jamal, how did it go? Let me know if you need help with anything." Jamal stared at the message, feeling a lump form in his throat. He hadn't told his dad about the dealership experience. He wasn't sure how to explain it. How could he tell his father that he had been treated like he didn't belong, like he wasn't good enough to even be in that showroom? Instead of replying right away, Jamal decided to clear his mind. He walked to the park nearby, hoping the quiet would give him the space he needed. As he sat down on a bench, he looked around. Families were gathered, kids were playing, and everything seemed peaceful. He was surrounded by so much life, but at that moment, he felt very alone. His thoughts kept circling back to the way he had been treated. It wasn't the first time he'd faced discrimination, but something about this time made it sting more. Jamal had always admired his father. Mr. Avery had worked hard to build his career from the ground up. Jamal had grown up in a modest home, where his father had often reminded him that success didn't come easily. But Mr. Avery had always been humble, and he made sure Jamal knew the value of hard work, respect, and integrity. Jamal had never known just how powerful his father was until today. As Jamal sat on the bench, the sound of a car engine pulled his attention. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, and the driver, a tall man in a sharp suit, stepped out. Jamal didn't pay much attention at first, but then the man turned around, and Jamal's heart skipped a beat. It was his father. Mr. Avery was here. Jamal hadn't expected to see his dad at the park. He had assumed his father was busy with work, as usual. But seeing him here, in this unexpected moment, made everything feel surreal. Mr. Avery smiled when he saw Jamal sitting on the bench, and walked over with a calm but confident stride. Jamal stood up, unsure of how to react. His father's presence was always reassuring, but right now, Jamal didn't feel like he could explain what had happened earlier. "Hey, champ," Mr. Avery said, his voice steady but warm. "I figured I'd find you here. How's everything going?" Jamal forced a smile, trying to push away the thoughts of the dealership. "It's fine, Dad," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "Just needed some fresh air." Mr. Avery looked at him closely, as if he could sense that something was wrong. "You sure about that? I know you. You've got something on your mind." Jamal took a deep breath, feeling a wave of emotion rise up inside him. How could he explain what had happened at the dealership? He wanted to tell his dad everything, but he wasn't sure how. He had always looked up to his father, but now, he felt like he wasn't measuring up. He didn't want his dad to think he couldn't handle things on his own. "Dad, it's nothing," Jamal said, shaking his head. "It's just, I don't know. I went to that dealership today, and things didn't go as I expected." Mr. Avery raised an eyebrow but didn't interrupt. He just stood there, listening intently, waiting for Jamal to continue. "The salesman, he treated me like I didn't belong there. Like I wasn't good enough to even be in that showroom. I guess I just didn't expect that kind of thing, you know." Jamal's words hung in the air, and for a moment, his father said nothing. Jamal looked down at his shoes, feeling the weight of what he had just said. He had been trying to keep it together, but now, with his father standing here, it all felt like it was too much. Mr. Avery finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Jamal, I'm sorry that happened. I can't say that I'm surprised, though. People like to make assumptions about others, especially when they don't know their story. It's not fair, but it's something that happens to a lot of people, especially people of color. But it doesn't define you. It doesn't define who you are or what you can achieve." Jamal looked up at his father, his eyes filled with confusion. "But why did he treat me that way, Dad? What did I do wrong? I just wanted to buy a car. I've worked hard for this moment. I didn't think it would be like this." Mr. Avery sighed deeply, sitting down next to his son on the bench. "Son, you didn't do anything wrong. The problem is that people, especially in places like that, often see someone like you and make assumptions based on how you look. They don't see the hard work you've put in, or the person you truly are. But that doesn't mean you should change who you are. You're worth more than their judgment. And one day, they'll see that." Jamal looked at his father, a mix of gratitude and frustration in his eyes. "But Dad, I don't want to just be some charity case. I don't want to be treated differently just because of who you are." His father chuckled softly. "I get that. Believe me, I've been in situations where people thought they could take advantage of me because of my success. But it's not about what others think. It's about what you think of yourself. You have to stand firm in who you are, no matter how others try to bring you down." Jamal's mind was still reeling, but his father's words started to sink in. He had always known his dad was successful, but now he understood just how much he had kept hidden. Mr. Avery wasn't just some businessman, he was a force to be reckoned with, and yet, he had always remained humble and quiet about it. Jamal hadn't realized until now just how much his father had shielded him from the world's harsh realities. "I understand, "Dad," Jamal said quietly. "I just need to keep going, right? Keep working, keep pushing." Mr. Avery nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "Exactly. And no matter what, don't let anyone tell you that you're not enough. You're more than enough. I'm proud of you, and I always will be." As Jamal sat there, the weight in his chest started to lift. His father's words were like a shield, protecting him from the hurt he had felt earlier. He still didn't know what to do about the car dealership, but one thing was clear: his father's strength and wisdom were guiding him, even when Jamal couldn't see it. He wasn't alone in this fight, and he was ready to keep moving forward, no matter what. The next day, Jamal woke up feeling a little lighter than he had the day before. His father's words from yesterday still echoed in his mind: "You're more than enough." He had been carrying that with him, and though it didn't completely take away the sting from the dealership experience, it helped him feel a bit more grounded. He knew that he couldn't let what happened the day before define him. He had worked hard for this moment, and he wasn't going to let anyone make him feel like he didn't deserve it. As Jamal ate his breakfast, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his father. "I spoke to someone at the dealership. I want you to give it another shot. Let me know how it goes." Jamal read the message several times, trying to process it. His father had reached out to the dealership. Jamal had to admit, part of him was hesitant. The idea of walking back into that place, especially after the way the salesman had treated him, made him feel nervous. But another part of him, the part his father had nurtured for so many years, knew he couldn't back down now. He had to face it. He sent a quick reply: "I'll go later today. I'll let you know what happens." As soon as he hit send, Jamal felt a wave of anxiety flood over him. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he was certain of one thing: he wasn't going to let anyone treat him like he didn't belong. The dealership was just as he remembered it: gleaming cars lined up, their glossy surfaces reflecting the sunlight. Jamal stood outside for a moment, trying to steady his breathing. He could feel his heart racing in his chest, but he reminded himself that this was just another step in proving to himself that he could handle whatever life threw at him. He had come this far. He wasn't going to let fear or embarrassment stop him now. The salesman from yesterday wasn't at the front desk when Jamal entered the showroom, which made him feel a little better. Maybe things would go differently today. He walked past the rows of cars, each one looking more expensive than the last, until he saw a familiar face. It was a different salesman, someone older with a calm, professional demeanor. The man looked up from his desk as Jamal approached, and his face softened as he gave him a welcoming smile. "Good afternoon," the salesman greeted, his voice friendly. "Can I help you with something?" Jamal took a deep breath, feeling a slight sense of relief. "Yeah, I was here yesterday, but things didn't go so well. I'm hoping we can try again." The salesman nodded, his expression sincere. "I'm sorry to hear about your experience. We aim to treat all of our customers with respect, so I apologize for what happened. I'll make sure you're taken care of today." Jamal was taken aback by the man's honesty. It was a refreshing change. He wasn't used to someone acknowledging the issue so openly. He nodded and smiled. "Thank you. I appreciate it." They spent the next few minutes talking about the cars Jamal was interested in, and the salesman was patient and attentive. Jamal had his eye on a sleek black sedan, something that felt like it could be his first real taste of independence. As the salesman showed him the features of the car, Jamal felt a sense of excitement build within him. This was what he had been working for, what he had been dreaming of. But even as he felt that, a part of him was still worried. Would he be judged again? Would the moment turn awkward like it had the day before? As the salesman went on, explaining the car's features, Jamal tried to focus on the details: the leather seats, the advanced technology, the smooth engine. But in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but wonder if things would be different now, if the judgment he had felt the day before would creep back in. Just as he was about to ask more about the car, a voice interrupted from across the room. It was the same salesman who had treated him poorly the day before. Jamal froze, the familiar face of the man who had dismissed him now standing a few feet away. "Can I help you with something, sir?" the salesman asked, his tone much different now. He seemed more nervous than before, almost hesitant. Jamal didn't know how to respond at first. He wanted to say something, to call the man out for the way he had treated him, but he also didn't want to make a scene. He was here to buy a car, not start a confrontation. But as he looked at the salesman, he could see that the man was visibly uncomfortable. His posture was stiff, his eyes darting around the room, not meeting Jamal's gaze. "Actually," Jamal said calmly, "I think I'm good for now. I'm just looking around." The salesman nodded quickly, his face flushed with embarrassment. Jamal didn't want to make him feel worse, but he wasn't going to let the man get away with treating him like he didn't matter. Instead of dwelling on the past, Jamal turned his focus back to the car he was interested in. The salesperson who had been helping him earlier came back to the scene, offering a polite smile and a helpful hand. "We'll make sure to give you all the details you need," he said to Jamal, picking up where the conversation left off. As they continued to talk about the sedan, Jamal started to feel more confident. He wasn't letting the other man's actions define his experience. He wasn't going to let someone's narrow view of him, based on how he looked, cloud his vision for what he could achieve. He had come here to buy a car, and nothing was going to stop him from doing just that. The more they discussed the car, the more Jamal realized how much he had learned in the past day. His father had been right, there would always be people who would judge him based on appearances, but that didn't mean he had to accept it. He could rise above it. He could prove that he was worthy, not just to the world, but to himself. And in that moment, he felt like he was doing just that. After about an hour of talking with the salesperson, Jamal agreed to take the car for a test drive. As he slid into the driver's seat, he felt a rush of excitement. The car was everything he had imagined and more. The engine hummed smoothly as he pulled out of the lot, the wind rushing through his hair. For the first time in a long time, Jamal felt free, like he was finally in control of his own path. As he drove around the block, he couldn't help but smile. He was proud of himself for sticking with it, for not letting one bad experience stop him from going after what he wanted. He wasn't just buying a car today, he was taking another step toward his future, one where he wouldn't let anyone define his worth. After a few more minutes, Jamal returned the car to the dealership, his heart still racing from the experience. He knew he wasn't done yet, but he was closer than ever. The world might have its judgments, but Jamal was ready to face them head on. He had learned that the only person who could truly define his future was himself. Jamal's mind raced as he drove home from the dealership, the rumble of the car's engine still echoing in his ears. He had just taken the car for a test drive, and it had felt incredible. The sleek, smooth ride, the power of the engine beneath his hands, it was everything he had imagined, and more. He had never thought he would be able to afford a car like that, but now, it was within reach. He felt a new sense of pride swelling in his chest. This wasn't just about the car, it was about the journey that had led him to this moment. The hard work, the late nights, the sacrifices, all of it was coming together. As Jamal pulled into his driveway, he parked the car and sat there for a moment, staring at it. He couldn't help but smile. This was his dream coming true, and it felt surreal. But at the same time, a part of him still couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The weight of yesterday's experience at the dealership lingered in his mind. Even though he had proven to himself that he could handle the situation, he still hadn't fully processed everything that had happened. He thought back to the moment when the salesman had treated him like he didn't belong, and how, at that moment, he had felt smaller than he ever had before. He knew his father had tried to help by reaching out to the dealership, but part of him still felt uncomfortable with the idea. He didn't want to rely on his father's success to get ahead. Jamal had always prided himself on his independence. He wanted to carve his own path, without needing anyone to open doors for him. But now, as he sat in the driver's seat of his new car, he began to realize something important. His father wasn't just offering help out of pride or a desire to control. He was trying to show Jamal that sometimes, reaching out for help wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. The next morning, Jamal woke up feeling a little more at peace. He had spent the night thinking about everything: the car, the dealership, his father's involvement, and his own place in the world. As he sat down to breakfast, he knew it was time to face his feelings head on. He couldn't let the past haunt him any longer. He had to look forward, to embrace his success and the opportunities that lay ahead. After breakfast, Jamal decided to take a walk. The weather was cool and crisp, a perfect day for some fresh air and reflection. He walked through his neighborhood, taking in the familiar sights. The houses were modest, just like the one he grew up in. There were kids playing in the yards, neighbors chatting on the sidewalks, and the usual sounds of the city in the distance. As he walked, he thought about the people he knew and how they had shaped him. He thought about his friends, his teachers, his mentors. They had all played a role in his journey, but none more than his father. His father had always been his role model. Mr. Avery had built his career from nothing, working long hours and making sacrifices to create a better life for his family. He had taught Jamal the value of hard work, the importance of humility, and the need to stay grounded no matter how successful you became. But recently, Jamal had realized that his father's life had also been full of challenges and obstacles that Jamal hadn't fully understood until now. Mr. Avery had worked so hard to create a life of comfort for them, but it had also come at a price. He had faced discrimination, doubt, and the constant pressure to prove himself. It wasn't just the business world that judged him, it was the world in general. And despite everything, Mr. Avery had always remained calm, collected, and strong. He had never let anyone's judgment define him. Jamal realized that his father's strength wasn't just in his success, it was in his ability to endure. He had faced the same kinds of challenges Jamal had experienced, but his father had never let it stop him. He had kept going, no matter what. And now, Jamal understood that this strength wasn't something he had inherited automatically. It was something he had to work for, just like everything else in life. He had to keep pushing forward, even when it seemed like the world was trying to knock him down. When Jamal returned home, he sat down with his father. Mr. Avery was in his office, working on some paperwork. He looked up when Jamal entered and smiled warmly. Jamal took a deep breath and sat down across from him. "Dad, I've been thinking," Jamal began. "About everything, about the dealership, the car, and, well, about us." His father raised an eyebrow, putting down his pen. "What's on your mind?" Jamal hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I know you tried to help me at the dealership, and I really appreciate it. But I've been feeling like I'm just using your success to get what I want. And that doesn't sit right with me. I've worked hard for this, and I want to prove that I can stand on my own." Mr. Avery listened quietly, nodding as Jamal spoke. He could see the struggle in his son's eyes. It was a struggle he knew all too well. "Jamal," his father said gently, "I understand how you feel. And I'm proud of you for wanting to stand on your own. But let me tell you something, I didn't get to where I am without help. We all need help sometimes. It's not a weakness, it's just part of life. You're not using my success, you're taking advantage of an opportunity that's been created for you. And there's nothing wrong with that." Jamal looked at his father, feeling a sense of clarity he hadn't felt before. "So, you're saying I shouldn't be afraid to lean on you when I need to?" Mr. Avery smiled. "Exactly. Lean on me, lean on others, and don't be afraid to ask for help. But always remember that at the end of the day, it's your work, your determination, and your character that will define you. No one can take that away from you. Jamal felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had been carrying so much guilt about relying on his father, but now, he understood that it wasn't about weakness, it was about strength. He wasn't alone on this journey. He had his father's guidance, and that was a gift, not a crutch. As the days passed, Jamal continued to work toward buying the car. He didn't let the obstacles or setbacks stop him. Each day, he grew more confident in himself, in his abilities, and in the support of his father. The world might have its challenges, but Jamal was ready to face them. He had learned that he didn't have to do it all alone, and that made him stronger than he had ever been. And when he finally drove that car off the dealership lot, it wasn't just a symbol of his hard work, it was a reminder of everything he had overcome. The car wasn't just a dream come true, it was proof that Jamal could take on anything that came his way. With his father by his side and his own determination leading the way, there was nothing he couldn't achieve. The days following Jamal's decision to buy the car felt like they were moving in fast forward. He had never imagined that something so simple, a car, could become a symbol of so much more. It wasn't just about the car, it was about everything that had led up to it. The dealership, the judgment, the doubts, the hard work, and the lessons he had learned from his father. Everything had come together in a way that he hadn't fully understood until now. He wasn't just buying a car, he was stepping into a new chapter of his life, one where he wasn't afraid to take risks and trust in his own abilities. Jamal spent the next few days going back and forth with the dealership, finalizing the paperwork and making arrangements. There were moments of doubt, moments when he questioned if he was really ready for such a big commitment. But each time, he thought back to the lesson his father had taught him: sometimes, you have to take a leap of faith, even when you're not sure what's on the other side. And just like that, Jamal found the courage to move forward. Finally, the day came. He drove to the dealership, his heart pounding with anticipation. The car was ready, waiting for him in the same showroom where it had all started. As Jamal walked into the dealership, the air felt different this time. He was no longer the nervous teenager who had been dismissed and judged. He was a young man who had worked hard, who had fought for what he wanted, and who had earned his place in that showroom. The same salesman who had treated him poorly the first time he came in approached him. Jamal noticed the shift in the man's demeanor. There was no longer any condescension or judgment in his eyes. Instead, the man offered a genuine smile. "Good to see you again," the salesman said, his voice warm. "I'm glad we could make this work." Jamal smiled back, but he didn't feel the need to engage with the salesman beyond the basics. He wasn't there for validation anymore. He was there because he had earned the right to be. After signing the final documents and shaking hands with the salesman, Jamal walked out of the dealership with the keys to his new car in his hand. It was a surreal moment. The car was everything he had hoped for, a sleek black sedan that glistened in the sunlight. But it wasn't just about the car. It was about the pride he felt in himself, the understanding that he had come a long way, and that nothing could take away what he had achieved. As Jamal slid into the driver's seat, he felt a rush of excitement. He had always dreamed of owning a car, but now that he had one, it felt like so much more. The engine hummed softly as he started the car, and for the first time, Jamal felt a sense of independence that he had never truly known before. This wasn't just about transportation, it was about freedom. The freedom to go wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted. The freedom to carve his own path and follow his own dreams. As Jamal drove down the road, he couldn't help but think about his father. He had always admired his dad, but now, more than ever, he realized just how much his father had given him, not just in terms of material things, but in the lessons he had taught him. His father had shown him that it wasn't enough to just work hard, you had to stay true to yourself, no matter what. You had to rise above the judgments and the obstacles and keep pushing forward. And that was what Jamal was doing now. He wasn't just driving a car, he was driving toward his future. The drive wasn't long, but it felt like the longest and most meaningful journey Jamal had ever taken. He passed through familiar streets, the same places he had walked as a kid, but now, everything felt different. The world was no longer something he was afraid of, it was something he was ready to take on. The car was just the beginning. There was so much more to look forward to, so many more challenges to face, and so many more dreams to chase. Jamal arrived back home, the car parked in the driveway, and he took a moment to sit there, just soaking it all in. He had done it. He had faced the doubts, the humiliation, and the uncertainty, and he had come out on top. He had bought the car with his own hard work and his own determination. And more importantly, he had learned something about himself along the way. He had learned that success wasn't just about what you achieved, it was about how you handled the journey to get there. As Jamal sat in the car, he thought back to the moment when he had been dismissed at the dealership. He remembered the sting of the salesman's words, how it had felt like the world had judged him before he had even had a chance to prove himself. But now, sitting in his new car, Jamal understood something important. He didn't need anyone else's validation. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He knew his worth, and that was enough. Jamal got out of the car and walked into the house. His father was sitting in the living room, reading the newspaper. When he saw Jamal, his face lit up with a smile. "You did it," Mr. Avery said, his voice full of pride. Jamal nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Yeah, I did. It feels incredible." His father stood up and gave him a hug. "I'm proud of you, son. Not just for buying the car, but for the way you handled everything. You've shown me, and you've shown yourself, that you've got what it takes." Jamal smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle in his chest. "Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you." Mr. Avery patted him on the back. "You didn't need me to get here, Jamal. You've always had it in you. I'm just glad I could be here to watch you grow." Jamal felt a rush of emotion, his eyes welling up with tears. He had always looked up to his father, but now, more than ever, he understood just how much his father's strength and wisdom had shaped him. It wasn't just about the lessons his father had taught him, it was about the way his father had always believed in him, even when Jamal wasn't sure he believed in himself. As they sat down together, Jamal realized that the journey wasn't over. This was just one step in a much bigger story. He had faced challenges, learned valuable lessons, and earned his place. But there was still so much more to discover, so much more to achieve. And with his father's guidance and his own determination, Jamal knew that he was ready for whatever came next. The car was just the beginning. It was a symbol of everything he had overcome, and everything that was still to come. He had learned that success wasn't just about reaching the destination, it was about enjoying the ride.